Hi there, Cindy Pope here at the Cool Tools Studio. I have a great project for you making elegant drops using bale templates. We're also setting a flat back red CZ stone. Here are the tools we're going to use to create these elegant drops with a red CZ setting. What I'm going to start with is olive oil and distilled water. I've created some little balls that I put in one of these silicone containers that Cool Tools carries ahead of time. Some sanding sponges, an applicator brush, 25 grams of Phoenix clay, 3mm flat back CZs. I have the fancy bales large and the chandelier graduated. And the chandelier graduated is for creating this back bale. Normally I would have used a circle, but I think it's fun to use an interesting shape. People, especially jewelers, always look at the back of your earrings. I'm going to have a precision brush, a pointed tweezers, 2.5mm precision punch, which I will use to set this stone, scalpel, a rolling pin, lots of extra tiles, and rolling frames. And I also use ball burrs and a stone setting burr to create my holes. And my rolling surface is a large tile with silicone mat on top of it. So we're going to get started in this project. You can use any texture mat you want. I think it looks really pretty with texture mat. This is Victorian tapestry, which I really like for this one. So I'm going to start with rolling four cards, and I'm going to roll down to 3. We're going to put a little bit of oil on the mat. And oil on my rolling pin. And this is Phoenix. I've already conditioned it, but I'm going to condition it a little bit more. When I'm working, I keep my clay in saran wrap, and I spritz occasionally. Back in the olden days, clay dried so fast that you had to cover it constantly. So I'm just giving it a condition to soften it up and make it more elastic. So we're going to roll 4 cards, and they're pretty thin earrings, but I'm going to show you a special way to get exactly the texture you want. So I'm wanting it thick enough to handle both earrings. And a lot of people, when they roll their clay, they do not roll hard. And so I've had a lot of students that would say they'd roll 4 cards and they'd end up with 6. So if you're really looking for a true 4 card, you want to do it this way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this in half. Using the back side of my scalpel. And half is going to go over in the saran wrap, and the other half is going to get a texture roll because I'm wanting a specific part of this texture. And I would need a whole lot of clay to get to that part in both parts of the texture, so I'm going to show you how I did it. I'm going to add oil to the back of my clay, and the back part is the part that was on the silicone mat because the surface of that is just really pretty when you're done rolling. So I'm using this one, and what I did to create it is I went over to find exactly what I like. So this is where I was. And so I'm going to put the clay on there because I'm going to roll it twice. The reason I separated the clay is because when I roll, I want both to be exactly the same. You could roll a second time, but this way it's coming from the same piece of clay. So we're going to turn it over right here. And I'm going to, I don't need to cut the stone hole first because I'm going to know exactly where I'm going to put it right there. So I'm rolling down to 3, which when you roll with texture, that's what you always do. And I'm going to go this way and this way. Really hard rolls. This is a little deeper. And then I'm going to press it down. Then we're going to let it fall off. Oops, fell right off onto the texture tile. I'm going to put it this way so you guys can see what I'm doing. So I'm making it nice and straight, and I'm making sure there's a spot where I'll know exactly where to punch that hole. So once I've got it up and down, I'm going to go ahead and use my scalpel or a clay pick if you prefer it. And then I'm going to cut these off at about right there. I don't like too long a drops. And I'm going to put that back in plastic and pull the second part out. I'm going to put some oil on the surface. And I'm going to try to get the exact same pattern on this piece. Okay, so both of our earrings are cut and they're the exact same part of the texture mat. I'm going to cut my holes right now, and because it's a specific texture, I'm just going to cut the hole right at the center where the leaf is. And this is a 2.5 millimeter precision hole punch. And our stone is 3, and then I'm going to show you how to set the stone. But next we'll cut the back bezels. And I know I told you that you only need this one, but for the back bezel we're going to use a 2 millimeter. So let's go ahead and do that. So for this one we're going to use the graduated chandelier. And I'm going to use a little teeny tiny one. And my thought was that you could do an outside shape like this and bezel a stone with this one. So I think I used the smallest one. And I'm just going to use probably 3 cards of clay. 2 might be okay too. A little oil. I spritzed my clay, so I'm going to roll it a little bit. But you do need to cover Phoenix because it's going to dry really quickly. So back when I was in Rio certification for PMC, that's how PMC 3 was. You covered it as soon as you weren't using it. So this clay reminds me a lot of PMC 3. I'm going to fold, sometimes I fold it over to, I'm not thrilled with the surface of the clay, and I'll just fold it over a little bit. This is like way more clay than I need. Okay, so I'm going to oil up the surface of this. And then I'm putting the part that was on the silicone mat up because that's, I think, the prettiest part. And we're just going to cut 2 of the smallest bezel, but I'm going to cut my holes first with this 2mm precision punch because then they'll be centered properly. And I'm getting them out first. You don't necessarily have to, but for me, it makes it easier for me to center, which is like a big challenge in my... And I like all nano stones. You always want to have an azure in the back. You don't necessarily need it for these flat back ones, but it looks so much prettier when a little light flows through. And I put it, so these little marks were right where the stone is, so I'm going to know exactly where to put this one. If on earrings, I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect because they're in separate ears, but... And then we're going to dry this also, and then we're going to join our 2 pieces together and set the stone. In order to set the stones, you need a stone setting burr. And these stones are 3mm. The hole is 2.5mm. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a bezel on the edge until this stone sits nicely. And you need to go slow, because if you go too fast with too big a stone setting burr, you are going to end up with your stone falling right through. So I'm going to put my reading glasses on so I can actually see what's happening. And you'll take a stone out, and then you'll test it as you drill. And these are so pretty because you just need 2 or 3 cards to set them, and the facets sit sticking out of the clay. Oh my gosh, I think, oh, that's upside down. I was going to say, I thought that was just in the right place. Let's see if I can get close enough so I can see it. So I'm putting the facet sides down so they will stick out. And I'm just going to I am really almost there. I just want to go so this is flat with the clay so I can cover it with the bezel. So I'm just going to drill a little bit more, and you can see the bezel on the side. And sometimes I'll take a slightly larger one if I feel like I'm going a little too deep. Oh, it's upside down. I love this red stone in this clay. I'm going to go a little bit deeper because this will not attach well if your stone is sticking out. Just a tiny bit more. Use the burr a little bit more. I think I'm going to go to the slightly bigger burr. Because I want to go wide, I don't want to go all the way through. I want to create a really nice shelf for this stone to sit on. So they're nice and flat, and I'm going to look at the front real quick to see how it looks. It looks fine. And so what I need to do is I need to put this backing on there. We're going to join it using some Phoenix clay. And because this is a dry connection, I'm going to need to use some pretty thick clay. So I'm going to make some slip. If I had a palette knife, it would be good, but you can use your scalpel to kind of smush it down. Probably not an appropriate use of a scalpel. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to wet the back of this one. With slip. And this slip is mostly clay. Let me put this down so I can. Because Phoenix is so hard and non-porous, when you're working with it, you really have to rehydrate the surfaces that you're joining together. Okay, and then I always have to do the back side too. Maybe I'll try it without the stone in there. And the nap of this applicator is really, really helpful to pick up that slip. Okay, I'm going to re-wet this one. I'm going to put this back on there, and we're not going to press it down until we've got it right where we want it. I've got clay in there, but the way you can tell that it's in the right place is there's a little square in the facet, and as you look through you can see the square of the facet. With teeny 3mm stones, it's not as big a deal as it is with bigger stones, because they're really all facet, the tiny ones. And I'm giving it pressure to make sure those two parts are going to join together. And then I'm going to reinforce it 3 times and then clean up the stone and drill a hole. So let's reinforce it once now. I'm also going to put a little dot on it, so why don't we do that now? Okay, I have 2 little tiny balls to put on. So on this one, while I'm waiting for the back to start drying, I'm going to make myself a spot to put the ball on. Now, these are flat back balls, so I want a nice flat spot for it to go on. And again, I'm rehydrating. And we have 4 different sizes of these. And the balls are just sitting in this water. So let's give them a minute to rehydrate it. here. And I'm going to move it back and forth again so I can get a really nice join, and then I'm going to press down with the flat part of this for about 30 seconds. And let's go ahead and dry it. Okay, we've reinforced once, and now I'm going to do the holes and reinforce a second time. And then I want to let you know I'm going to reinforce a third time and then refine. I'm not going to show you that because it'll take forever. But 3 times on the reinforcing with attachments. Attachments onto dry clay. I just really love the shape of this earring. Who would have thought a bale template would create a really pretty earring? Your templates are really so versatile. It's hard to imagine doing something crazy like this with my bale templates. So now we're going to do a hole, and I'm going to reinforce real quick first though. And you want to get all the way around it without trying to get too much on the texture. And then I'm going to start with a small ball burr and work my way up. And look at how pretty that stone is. And it's got a bunch of clay behind it right now that I will clean before I fire. Beautiful little stones. I think I'm going to go one size up. And then we are going to do a stone setting burr to just curve all the edges and make the hole look a lot prettier. So I'm going to reinforce a last time, and then I'm going to fire at 1380 for 10 minutes. And put a pretty patina on it and high polish the shine. Thank you for joining me at the Cool Tools Studio. I hope you enjoy this project using your templates in a new and different way.